Like every year, 2025 was filled with its fair share of strange and mysterious events. Some of these were resolved relatively quickly, but many people entered the new year with more questions than answers about events that had occurred. Number 10. About midday on an ordinary Monday in April, the lights across Spain and Portugal went out. Elevators stopped working, and hospitals had to switch to backup generators. The Iberian peninsula blackout lasted less than 24 hours, but the impact may have claimed the lives of multiple people. The exact cause of the blackouts is still being investigated. It was April 28, 2025, and to most people across Spain and Portugal, the morning was like any other. Just after midday, those monitoring the power grid noticed some strange oscillations in the electrical frequency. The grid usually sat at a frequency of 50 Hz and is supposed to stay stable. Small oscillations are normal though, and steps are taken to mitigate the slight changes. About 10 minutes later, workers noticed another period of oscillations. They again took steps to mitigate the changes and stabilize the grid. Things seemed fine, but just after 12:30, the power suddenly dropped and the grid failed. Fail-safes from power plants that were supposed to kick in did not happen, and almost all power across Spain went out. As Spain also provides power to most of Portugal, Portugal also suffered a blackout. In neighboring Andorra and France, the electricity briefly went offline, but they were able to restore within a few minutes. The same would not happen in Spain and Portugal. It's easy to underestimate just how much of modern life relies on electricity. There were obvious problems like refrigerators turning off and the lights inside buildings going out. Trains across both countries also stopped working. This was especially terrifying in cities with metro systems. Thousands of passengers were trapped in pitch darkness underground. Nobody knew how long the power would be out. If passengers left the trains and tried to move along the lines when the power was switched back on, it could lead to electrocution and serious harm. Eventually, it became clear that this wasn't going to be a short-term problem, and staff helped passengers out of the tunnels. Above ground, emergency services had to travel to hundreds of buildings where people were trapped in elevators that had suddenly stopped. Not knowing how long the power would be out, many went to supermarkets to buy supplies of food, water, and batteries. Unfortunately, the power outage meant all card payment systems were down, and huge queues formed outside banks as people tried to take out money. Thankfully, by the evening, electrical systems started to come back online. By the following morning, almost all electricity across Spain and Portugal was restored. This was aided in part by Morocco and France sending power to the affected areas. Almost immediately, the search for an explanation for the mysterious event began. Both the Spanish government and the electrical operator, Red Eléctrica de España, began separate investigations, and it soon became clear there wasn't going to be one thing that could be blamed for the disaster. There may have been a single point of failure, but there should have been steps in place that could have prevented that failure from becoming a disaster, and those steps were faulty. The sudden drop in power was traced to a series of generation trips in southern Spain, and this caused the grid to lose a huge amount of power, but the exact cause of this is still unclear. Number 9. An unusual mystery from 2025 was a strange crime that took place in France towards the end of the year. The theft made headlines across the world, and the culprits behind it remain a mystery. It was late November, and people involved in the culinary industry were preparing for the Christmas season. Like in many other parts of the world, Christmas comes with a selection of special dishes in France, which are traditionally eaten at this time of year. Among those are escargots, or snails. While snails are eaten as a delicacy throughout the year in France, around 60% of escargot is consumed during the festive season. They're typically served as starters during large meals and are served with garlic butter. A few hundred farming families across the country supply snails for consumption, although they only account for a small fraction of the total stock. One of these families is the Auvergne, who run a farm in northeastern France. The farm was started in 1999 by Jean Mathieu's parents, and he still runs the business today. It not only farms the snails for sale at markets and to restaurants, but it also has a laboratory and an area where tourists can come to visit. The farm also supplies escargot to Michelin star restaurant Le Parc, among other high-end restaurants. On the morning of November 24th, Jean-Mathieu went to work like normal, but he immediately knew something was wrong. The door to the shop was open. Inside, doors to the kitchen and laboratory were also open. Inside, he discovered almost his entire stock was gone. Fresh and frozen snails had been stolen, along with petty cash from the shop's register. Luckily, the producer snails, which lay eggs, had been left behind, but almost everything else was gone. In total, the thieves had taken 990 pounds of snails, worth more than 90,000 pounds. The timing led the farm owners to believe the snail heist was conducted by someone who knew the food industry. This was the time of year when stock would have been at its highest, just before everything was sent to various restaurants and outlets that had ordered the snails far in advance. The fact they hadn't taken the producer snails also seems to indicate that the thieves knew what they were doing. These snails would not have been easy to sell, which likely is why they were left behind. The thieves would likely have known that a blow like this to the Auvergnes would take about a full year to fully come back from, meaning that there was no way that the farmers would be able to replenish their stocks to fulfill their orders without buying from outside. An investigation into the theft found that a hole had been cut into a fence, but if any other clues were found, these have not been made available to the public. Number 8. Archaeologists in Poland made a strange discovery on the site of a former ice cream parlor. An intricately carved limestone gravestone was found, with the remains of what appeared to be a medieval knight buried beneath it. The city of Gdansk has a long and rich history. In 1308, the city was captured by the Teutonic Knights after fierce fighting against the ruling Sembarides. Countless locals lost their lives in the aftermath of the disaster, and Gdansk became a Teutonic fortress. The town wouldn't be returned to Poland until 1466. In modern times, archaeologists have been finding the remains and reminders of that period of history in digs across the city's historic center. In 2023, they got another exciting opportunity to unlock some of the city's past. The Miss Ice Cream Parlor had occupied a site in the city center since 1962, but it had now relocated. The building was torn down, and archaeologists began to look at what lay long buried beneath the surface. In 2024, they found the remains of what's believed to be the oldest church in Gdansk. The wooden church was built around 1140 and was found within the remains of a stronghold that was also constructed around the same time. A graveyard with around 300 graves was discovered, but none were as remarkable as the grave discovered in the summer of 2025. Archaeologists first found the limestone tombstone that was placed above the burial. It was about 5 feet long and remarkably well preserved. It had been broken into about 4 pieces, but the carvings on the stone's surface were still clearly visible. A man wearing a pointed helmet and chainmail armor had been etched into the stone. He held a shield on one arm and a sword in the other. The pommel rested against his chest in a position that archaeologists believe indicated power. As the stone was so delicate, experts worked quickly to remove it from the site and take it to a museum where it could be preserved. They were also excited to find out what lay beneath the stone. The gravestone had been made from limestone, quarried on the Swedish island of Gotland. Together with the image of the knight, it made it clear that whoever was buried here was important. Buried not far beneath the tombstone was the skeleton of a man. There were no grave goods, and if it hadn't been for the tombstone, there would have been no indication that the man was anybody significant. But for archaeologists, it was still an astonishing find. The only thing that was known about the man was that he would have stood between 5'6" and 5'9" tall in life. That was about average height for medieval Poland. Experts believed he was either a knight or an honored military commander of some kind. There may have been a symbol once painted onto his shield, as traces of white paint had been discovered, but the image has long since been lost. Scientists are now trying to piece together the mystery of this man, and who he was and what his life had been like. It's not certain exactly when he passed away, It does seem unlikely that the Gdansk night will ever be specifically named, but it's likely that more about this mysterious man will be uncovered in the years to come. Number 7. On March 3rd, 2025, Stephanie Womack was out camping with her husband when she suddenly vanished without a trace. Despite extensive search efforts in the surrounding area, she remains missing. Stephanie's husband last saw her at about 5 p.m. on March 3rd. The couple had traveled from Georgia to South Carolina's Table Rock State Park and were staying at an established campground. There were plenty of other people around, and it should have been a safe environment. Her husband left to get supplies for their camping trip, leaving Stephanie alone at the campsite. By the time he returned, Stephanie was nowhere to be found. After asking around with the other campers, they reported that they had last seen her at about 6 p.m. Nobody noticed Stephanie leave, or anybody acting suspiciously before her disappearance. Stephanie was a 52-year-old combat veteran at the time of her disappearance, and her family says she was rated at 100% disability. Her walking stick and blanket were also missing from the campground. Stephanie was reported missing that evening, and a search immediately began. There are numerous hiking trails around Table Rock State Park, and Stephanie apparently didn't share any intentions of going off on one of these trails alone, but it's possible she might have wandered off while waiting for her husband to return. The initial search teams went over the trails with sniffer dogs, drones, and a helicopter helping in the investigation. A few days after the search began, search and rescue teams found a number of items off the trail. They were identified as belonging to Stephanie, although what exactly these were wasn't shared with the public. The search is now refocused in this area and moving outwards away from the trail. Over 100 search and rescue personnel were part of the search effort, but the difficult terrain didn't make things easy. About 2 weeks after Stephanie disappeared, many of the searches had to be put on hold. 2 irresponsible hikers in another part of the park had accidentally started a forest fire. The fire had gotten out of control, and at one point a small search team was almost trapped by the blaze. The fire was eventually put out, and searches continued in a more limited capacity in late March. Unfortunately, other than the items found early in the investigation, no new clues appeared to have been made. The fire may have destroyed crucial evidence that could have led to Stephanie's discovery, but other clues may be lying somewhere in the underbrush off the trail. The police do not suspect foul play in Stephanie's disappearance. Anyone with information can contact the Pickens County Sheriff's Office at 864-898-5500. Number 6. A strange object was seen flying over the skies of a Colombian city in March of 2025. The object allegedly crashed to the ground, and the ball found at the crash site has been baffling scientists ever since. Videos filmed in Buga, Colombia, seemed to show a strange object in the sky. It was behaving erratically, zigzagging in a way that made it clear this wasn't natural. The object was allegedly disrupted by power lines and fell to the ground, though it didn't seem to actually make contact with anything before plummeting to the earth. At first, it seemed possible this was a simple drone or something similar. But when locals went to the field to retrieve the object, they found something much more strange. The Buga sphere, as it became known, looked like something from a science fiction film. It was a round metal ball with hieroglyphics and a script from ancient Mesopotamia etched into the surface. There was no obvious signs of any joints or welding, and nothing to indicate how the two halves of the sphere could have been joined together. The mysterious object was taken to a university in Mexico for further study. X-rays and other examinations showed that this wasn't a solid ball of metal. In fact, there was something at the center of the sphere, which researchers called a chip. It had microscopic wires, which may have been able to receive and transmit signals, and 18 microspheres that encircled the central chip. According to early reports, scientists used AI to translate the markings found on the outside of the sphere. It allegedly read, quote, "The origin of birth through union and energy in the cycle of transformation, meeting point of unity, expansion and consciousness, individual consciousness." Researchers interpreted this message as a sign that humanity should work together for the good of the Earth. The Buga sphere attracted the attention of UFO enthusiasts, who believed the object was something from a more advanced society. Researchers claimed that it gained weight in the first few months of research, despite not growing in size. This allegedly indicated that the object had some kind of anti-gravity system that may have allowed it to fly. Locals have claimed that the grass where the sphere landed has remained burned and hasn't grown back, even months after the crash. Those who handled the object have also reported feeling nauseous, and some have even had ongoing health problems. Researchers have seen this as further evidence of the advanced technology, although there doesn't seem to be any evidence of radiation coming from the object. But the claims made by these researchers have also been met with skepticism, even by those who typically research UFOs. But one theory is that the sphere is just some kind of art project. Skeptics have pointed out that there's no indication that the Buga sphere is the same object seen in videos of the mysterious object in the sky. It's possible that this object was some kind of natural phenomenon, or a more mundane aircraft unrelated to the Buga sphere. Either an opportunistic prankster or someone operating something like a drone then produced the mysterious sphere and just claimed it fell from the sky. Number 5. Builders working in a cellar of a home in Lancashire, England, made a horrifying discovery in August of 2025. While the police do not believe anything suspicious happened, the disturbing discovery remains a mystery months later. It was just after midday on August 15th when the police were called to an ordinary terrace house in the seaside town of Lytham. Builders working in the cellar had uncovered what looked like human bones. As forensic teams examined the remains, they were quickly able to confirm they were human. Not only that, they appeared to be the remains of children. As more information about the discovery was slowly revealed to the public, it became more and more horrifying, but no arrests were made. The police did not believe the homeowners were some kind of sadistic criminals. In fact, they reported that they didn't believe any kind of foul play was involved at all. It was reported that the police believed the remains were from a historic burial isolated to the property itself. The house may have been built on a much older burial site. This statement soon raised more questions than answers. Lytham is an old town and has appeared in the Domesday Book since 1070. This was a record of a great survey of England and parts of Wales conducted on the orders of William the Conqueror. Maps of Lytham throughout the centuries have also been preserved, and historians have reported that there's no record of any historical burial sites at that location. This could mean that the burial is even older than this survey. The area around Lytham has been populated since the Bronze Age, and the town was already well established by the time of William the Conqueror. The burial site may have already been forgotten about by the time the Domesday Book was written. Alternatively, it could mean that the burial was more recent, but it was never an official burial site. In the past, it wasn't too uncommon for family members to be buried on private property, which might have been the case here. Dating the remains will possibly provide some explanation for this strange mystery. Depending on how old the bones are, they may have even been the remnants of burials made by Vikings who settled in the area around the year 900. Number 4. Every October, many organizations that look after old buildings take the opportunity to share some of the spooky and unexplained stories that take place within the historic walls. Many of these stories are used to build up attention for various Halloween events that are taking place that month. But one story, shared by English Heritage in October of 2025, came with its own photo evidence of a mysterious event. English Heritage looks after over 400 historical buildings across the country. One of these is Chester Castle, a castle first built almost 1,000 years ago. The original castle was built in 1070 by the Earl of Chester and was later rebuilt as a more permanent structure. With over 950 years of history, it's not surprising that there are stories of tragedy attached to the castle. At various points, people have been held here against their will, and many people lost their lives within the walls. Other individuals lived out normal lives and passed away far from the castle, but their lifetime spent in Chester may have meant their spirits are still attached to the building. Like many of the other buildings in Chester, there are numerous ghost stories attached to Chester Castle. One is the tale of a headless Norman knight that still apparently roams the castle grounds looking for his missing head. Another is the daughter of a jailer who lived in the 17th century. According to the story, she fell in love with a prisoner and leapt from the building's ramparts when that prisoner lost his life. None of these stories seem to explain the mysterious figure spotted on camera during a mysterious event in 2025, though. It was the middle of the night when a motion detection camera picked up something in front of one of the main gates, around where the gatehouse once stood. The figure was in an area that should have been inaccessible after the house. Cameras monitor the outer walls, and spikes on the ramparts stop anybody from being able to climb inside. A security guard was sent to check out the scene, and when he got there, there was no trace of any intruder. The guard had his dog with him, which was usually fearless, but for some reason, the dog was cowering in the car and wouldn't come out to conduct a check. Even though there didn't seem to be anyone there, the guard conducted a check anyway. Nobody could be seen, but the guard reported that he felt as if hundreds of eyes were on him. A sweep of the area turned up nothing, and no explanation for why the camera had detected anything. Going over the video footage, security spotted a chilling image. What looked like a ghostly figure could be seen, very clearly. It looked like a person wearing a hooded jacket. The upper half of the person was clearly visible, and it's possible to make out what looks like a boot. What makes the figure so eerie is the fact that it doesn't seem to have a face. English Heritage stated that they weren't saying it was a ghost, but they didn't know what or who the figure was. Combined with the security guard's story, the faceless intruder will be remembered as one of the most mysterious events to take place at Chester Castle in recent years. Number 3. UVB-76 is possibly the most famous shortwave radio station in the world. The mysterious station has been attracting the attention of military experts and amateur sleuths for decades, but in 2025, a series of strange events brought the station into the news more than ever before. UVB-76, or the Buzzer, is a mysterious radio station broadcasting a repeated buzzing sound at 4,625 kilohertz, likely near St. Petersburg, Russia. Since the 1970s, the buzzer has been occasionally interrupted by cryptic voice messages of letters and numbers, leading many to speculate it's a Cold War number station for Soviet spies. Despite advances in technology, the broadcasts continue, though, with messages often coinciding with significant Russian geopolitical events, such as the poisoning of Alexei Navalny and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. A series of messages in 2025 drew attention, including one on June 4th with the code words Azotabak and Oshalin broadcast shortly after a phone call between the Russian and US presidents. Unusually, this was publicized by the state-controlled news network, Russia Today, or RT, which has increasingly discussed the station. RT promotes the theory that UVB-76 is connected to a dead hand system, a nuclear retaliatory trigger that would activate if the broadcast stopped. But this is unlikely, as the station has gone offline many times. In November and December of 2025, there was another flurry of messages, with a record 24 messages sent on November 11th. Worryingly, the word Latvia was clearly heard in a later code, prompting fears of an attack. The true purpose of UVB-76 remains unknown, with theories ranging from maintaining activity to psychological warfare. Number 2. In the early hours of Monday, December 29th, an alarm was set off at a bank in Gdansk, Germany. Police and firefighters rushed to the scene, where they'd find a hole in the vault wall and thousands of safety deposit boxes emptied. The police described the crime as something like that from a Hollywood film like Ocean's 11. The bank is located in the Gelsenkirchen suburb, beside a multi-story parking garage. It held an underground vault where customers could store safe deposit boxes, and each box was insured up to 10,300 pounds, though many customers stored much more in the boxes. The weekend after Christmas was very quiet in the area, and nobody seemed to notice anything as a group of thieves entered the parking garage at some point on Friday night or Saturday morning. Early on Saturday, a fire alarm was tripped at the bank, and the police and firefighters went to the scene. They could see nothing amiss from the outside and left without investigating the basement vault. If they'd gone down there, they likely would have found the group of criminals in action. The thieves had drilled a hole through the parking garage wall into the bank itself, and it's believed the dust from this is what triggered the first fire alarm. Now in the bank's archive room, they began cutting through the reinforced walls of the vault itself. Photos later showed the crime scene with several walls with almost perfect circular holes cut through them. It's believed that the thieves spent most of the weekend going through the thousands of safety deposit boxes and removing jewelry, cash, and precious metals. Witnesses reported seeing a group of men carrying large bags in the parking garage on Saturday evening, but nobody realized just what the men were doing. It's unclear when the thieves left and whether they directly triggered the Monday morning fire alarm, but by the time the police arrived, the culprits were nowhere to be found. Security footage from the parking garage revealed a group of masked men in an Audi with stolen license plates. The men paid for a ticket for the car, but forced open the barriers to allow a white van through. It's believed this van was obviously also involved in the crime somehow. The police issued images from the CCTV footage, which showed the men. They all seemed to be wearing different colored gloves, which the police hoped might help in identification. It's believed that the crime was committed by professionals. The equipment needed to drill through the bank walls wasn't something that could be picked up at a hardware store. The thieves seemingly knew exactly when and where to hit as well. The bank sent out a statement telling its customers that if they had a safe deposit box, it had likely been broken into. Only a small number of boxes had remained untouched. Exactly how much was stolen is currently unknown. The police ask that anyone with information that could help solve the case call 0209-365-8112 or 0209-365-8240. Number 1. There are few places on this planet shrouded in more mystery and controversy than the infamous Area 51. So when a mysterious event occurred not far from the secretive military base, it gathered the attention of conspiracy theorists and UFO hunters alike. The event occurred on September 23rd, only about 12 miles east of the security boundary that surrounds Area 51. Something fell from the sky and landed in the middle of the Nevada desert. According to locals, this was an aircraft from the Creech Air Force Base, which is to the south of Area 51, not far from Las Vegas. The base is home to fleets of Reaper drones and other unmanned aircraft. The official story is that an unmanned aircraft crashed during an exercise. Nobody was harmed in the incident, and there was no damage to the property. On its own, this wouldn't be too unusual. There have been multiple stories of military drone crashes, and normally they have some level of secrecy, as the military doesn't want to give away too many details about its aircraft. But the secrecy level at this mysterious event was beyond the norm. A large no-fly zone was set up around the crash site, something that immediately attracted the attention of anybody with an interest in Area 51. It was so close to the base, it was speculated that the crash might have had something to do with the secretive location. That theory seemed to be backed up by Jorg Arnu, who's been investigating Area 51 for years. Arnu claimed he was listening in on Area 51 military chatter on the day of the incident, and all of a sudden, things became very serious, and he overheard people talking about locking down the base. He claimed to have heard people say that an asset had gone down, and a UAV had gone down. Area 51 is separate from Creech Air Force Base. If the mysterious drone had originated there, personnel from Area 51 wouldn't have been relaying messages about their own assets. According to Arnu, he went out to see what he could find in person, taking back roads to get to the location of the crash. This was on public land, but unsurprisingly, he was blocked by local police and military personnel. It was a few days before he could actually get to the crash site, and there was little to be seen at the site. It seemed many heavy vehicles had been over the area, covering the ground in a compact layer of dirt and leaving no trace of anything that might have crashed. But Arnu claimed there was no way the military could have cleaned up the crash in such a short amount of time, and he speculated he may have come across a decoy area. Things only became more mysterious on October 3rd. According to the military, the cleanup operation had finished about a week earlier on September 27th. But when they were conducting a site survey in early October, they found objects that had been left at the crash site. These were an inert training device body and an aircraft panel from an unknown vehicle, and it looked as if they'd been deliberately placed here to tamper with the crash site. It was possible these objects had fallen from another plane after the airspace was opened again, but this could have just been a strange coincidence. The FBI became involved in the investigation to determine who had tampered with the site and why. Theorists have speculated that the story of the tampering is false, and it was only spread to stop people from trying to investigate the scene itself. And what exactly crashed in the Nevada desert, and what happened after the crash, remains a mystery. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.